All right, so I saved the most fun part of the course for last. And it's advertising, because this is the part of marketing that everybody thinks of as being marketing. There's parts of marketing that nobody thinks of as being marketing, like logistics. And that's some of the oldest parts of marketing, but everybody thinks about advertising as being marketing. And it's the part that we all know because we're bombarded with it all the time. And most of the time we try to tune it out. We try to get rid of the persuasions. In the past, that was harder to do. In the modern era, it's becoming increasingly easier to do. The first ability of consumers to sort of time shift and get past advertisements was with the invention of the Betamax, which was the first home video cassette recording, and so people could record. And there's a very famous case that comes out of that, because the content creators sued Sony, saying that you were infringing on our copyright and allowing people to basically, the reason they were concerned about it at the time was because live television was concerned that if people could record their shows, they saw this coming, they would skip past the ads, right? They would record the show and then skip past the ads. And so they sued under a theory of what's called contributory infringement, saying, look, you're creating a product that is going to allow people to infringe on our copyright and basically get past the advertising. And since the Supreme Court said, well, we're not going to stop technology, we're not going to stop the progression of technology, you're going to have to go after individual infringers rather than using this theory of vicarious liability, it's been a continual battle between marketers to try and cut through the noise, to get people's attention, and to engage in advertising in ways that persuade them to buy products and services. Now, we've gotten really pretty clever at this. One of the things that we've done with regard to mobile media marketing is, how many of you play games on your phone? Almost everybody plays games on their phone. How many of you play free versions of games on your phone? Almost everybody, right? Plays these, like when you're sitting in the doctor's office, when you're waiting for class to go, and you're sitting out in the hall, you play little games on your phone. We all do it. My nephew before he got his own phone, he would get my phone and it would be blown up with all of these apps that he had downloaded for all kinds of video games that he was playing, all of which are free, except they're not really free, right? There's no such thing as a free lunch. The way they give it to you for free, the way they give you the content like Angry Birds and all these others, is by advertising in the game. And if you want to avoid the advertising, then you could pay for the game. And lots of people, I guess, do that if it's important enough to you. But so we've come up with all these ways to try and continue to engage the consumer and engage in advertising. And in many respects, those advertisements are ethically problematic because they impinge upon an individual's ability to make autonomous choices in some instances. And we'll talk about what constitutes autonomy. Have we talked about what constitutes autonomy in here, and what you need to have so that you're not impinging on people's autonomy? We'll talk about that. So you guys have come up with some commercials that we're going to watch, and I'm going to ask you, why is the ad great, right? So I talked to you last time, and the thing I said makes an ad great is that it meets two critical elements. It engages the mind of the consumer, and it delivers a selling message. And I think last time we watched the Herding Cats commercial as an example of this, didn't we? We watched the Herding Cats. Didn't we do that last time? Pretty sure we did, right? So this really engages the mind of the consumer. Why? Because there's cognitive dissonance that's created around these rough and tumble cowboys that are, herding fluffy little kitty cats. And that's not what we think of when we think of the American West. So it's this sort of disjointed storyline that doesn't fit with the narrative that we're used to. And so it engages the mind of the consumer because it forces you to think. The problem with that ad was that after they showed the ad, nobody remembered the company that created the ad. It was enormously creative. It won awards, but it didn't deliver a selling message. So great ads both they engage the mind of the consumer and they deliver a selling message, right? Now then what we have to do is in further analysis of those ads, we have to think about those ads in terms of the ethical theories that we've used throughout this course to analyze whether or not the ad is unethical. So let's look at some of the ads that you guys created, or not created, but that you all sent in and submitted.
That'd be fun.
What's that?
I said that'd be fun. I have to create one.
Yeah, create the ad. I should have had you do that. I should have had you come up with, you can do this now with AI. You could probably generate an ad fairly quickly, I would think, and we could do that. Maybe that's what I'll do next semester. I'll say, use AI to generate an ad for a product that you like, or a product that you develop. That's what I think I'll do.
That'll open a whole nother can of worms on AI ethical, making an ad with AI, how ethical that is compared to like creating a real ad as a person.
Right.
And like connecting with someone if it's just like constant content coming out just from an AI.
Well, that's what we have now, right?
Yeah.
And we actually, one of the things that we worry about as marketing ethicists is the amount of, you can become addicted to anything. In the past, historically, what we thought of as being addictions have been drug and alcohol use. And those are serious social concerns, but there are now, we recognize that you can become addicted to this device. How many hours a day do you spend? Your iPhone will tell you how many hours a day you spend. And mine tells me that I watch it a lot. Now, actually, it's probably overstating the amount of time that I use the screen time because I use it to fall asleep. I listen to ASMR videos and I'm not really watching it. I just put it like on my nightstand and listen to these soft-spoken like sleep hypnosis videos in order to try and calm down and go to sleep, rather than taking sleeping pills, because I've told you all I'm a licensed commercial pilot, so I can't get prescriptions for things like sleeping pills. So I use this as my sleep device, and I'll wake up in the middle of the night and it's still playing ASMR videos. So anyway, let's look at this first ad. And what's wrong with the bar? Something's up there. There. That's almost there. All the way up. All right, so why did you guys choose this ad?
I thought this was a really good ad because of a few reasons. One, I like that they had the setting in a diner, which kind of was like signifying like cultural change, and because they had the poppy. Let me pull it up. Sorry, hold up the wrong one.
And we talked about like the influencers that are in the video as well.
Okay, so who were the influencers that were in the video?
The one that I knew was Alex Earl. And she
Okay.
was the blonde girl at the pool.
And what is she known for?
She's a TikTok influencer.
Okay, the reason I ask this is because when I was a kid growing up, you knew who the famous people were. And it was a very small subset of the population that was famous. They were on television or in movies. And so it was enormously, limited in terms of the number of people that you would use for celebrity endorsements. But now there are so many people out there that are famous. They have millions of followers maybe, but like I have no idea who they are. In fact, it's even gotten to the point where even among television personalities or actors or movie actors, I don't think people know. So for example, I have been part of a production company that produced a movie that's coming out this spring. It will be released at the Tribeca Film Festival. It's called Sovereign, and it's about these people who think they're sovereign citizens. And one of the characters in it is played by a childhood actor I'd never even heard of. He's done quite a bit of work. Once, when they told me about the film and wanted me to invest, I looked him up because I'd never heard of him. And the main producer, the executive producer on the show, was asking this kid, like, are you like the most popular kid in school? I think the kid's name is Jacob Tremblay. Has anybody heard of him? You've heard of him?
Yeah.
I'd never heard of him.
He's
Before.
a big childhood actor.
Really?
Yeah.
No clue, right? Like, if you said Tom Cruise, I would know that. And although you all probably don't know who Tom Cruise is, right? Or Madonna. I mean, some of the people that were really popular, that were famous when I was a kid growing up, for example, rock bands were very famous. The Grateful Dead was a big rock band, and I said the Grateful Dead and Jerry Garcia the other day, and my students just looked at me like, yeah, no clue whatsoever. So anyways, this young child actor and the executive producer on this film was asking him, like, are you the most popular kid in school because you're in movies? He's like, nobody even knows who I am at school. They just have no clue, because we have so many people that are out there that are creating content and may have millions of followers and nobody knows. So you like this because there's these content creators in this ad that you recognize that are influencers. That's become a big business if you can get to be an influencer. I mean, I keep putting these videos out on YouTube hoping that, my marketing prowess will pique somebody's interest and I'll have thousands of people watching these videos. And I go in and look, and the video, I think I've told you all this, the video that I have the most hits on, from time to time, I make these videos where I do something useful, because I'll have all these friends that think the college professors can't do anything useful. So I replaced the driver's side mirror on my Dodge 3500 pickup truck, because it's really expensive to get them. If people hit them all the time, because 3500s have these huge mirrors that go out so that you can see around whatever it is you're hauling, and that leads to them being hit if you park on the street. And after paying $2,000 twice, I decided I was going to learn how to install the mirror myself. And then I made a video of how to install the mirror myself. And I've had literally thousands of hits on that video of how to install a mirror on a Dodge Ram 3500 so that you get the puddle light and all of that, and nothing else that I've produced, ends up being at all significant. The others are just, maybe I tell students to watch the videos if you miss class, and maybe somebody will do that. I think they watch about 10 minutes of it and then they go to sleep and flip to something else. But so there's all these social media. So you think that engages, you're saying that you think that the social media influencers engage the mind of the consumer to try this new soft drink. And what's the selling message of the soft drink? What's the selling message in the ad? I think that it's pretty clear actually in this ad what the selling message is, which is what?
That it's a healthier, better alternative.
Yeah, that it's a healthier, better alternative than traditional soda. I think that's it. Now you have to sort of read the taglines as part of it to see that, because they put that across the screen. It does engage the mind of the consumer because they're making, like there's these choice alternatives that are creating a problem for people at the drive up window or the Sonic or wherever it is that they're at. And then you see the health benefits, which is that it's only got 5 grams of sugar.
Has
Which
probiotics
is-
in it.
Yeah, it has probiotics. Have probiotics really been shown to do anything for you?
Oh, gut bacteria.
Okay, maybe. I mean, they're not regulated by the FDA.
Wasn't there a
So-
huge thing about Poppy though?
I mean, that's one
Was
of,
there?
that's one of the things that I think is an ethical issue here, is when you make these claims about probiotics, are they really beneficial? Because this is stuff that's not really been evaluated. As long as you call it a supplement, and nobody's dying, do we know what the benefits are?
Because there's a huge debate between Olipop and Poppy, like which one is better, which one is more healthy for you. I talked about it this summer, and we did a SWOT over them, on both of them. And we looked it up and there was, I don't remember what it was, but there was a whole thing about like that it's not proven that the antibiotics do anything.
The
And so
probiotics.
Or probiotics, sorry.
It's been proven that antibiotics do something.
Yeah, I meant
Right?
probiotics, sorry.
Hopefully antibiotics do,
I hope so, I'm on some right now, so hopefully it helps.
Well, there was like a lawsuit against Poppy like, a couple months ago
Mhm.
of them advertising to be healthy when really, like, yes, it's a better alternative to pop, but it's not like eating some fruit.
Yeah.
And so they did kind of get in trouble for that, which is interesting.
Right, I mean, there's all of these people that advertise all these kinds of things that they say are healthy. The pills that you're supposed to be able to get all of your fruits and vegetables in 4 little pills a day that are, what is it, Nature's Balance, I think. And they say things like, developed by a doctor. And I mean, are doctors like scientists? Some are, most aren't. Most are clinicians.
It also makes me laugh when they put like dermatologists tested
Mhm.
on brands, like, well, what were the results? They could have been
Right.
horrible, but they were
Absolutely,
tested.
yes. I mean, these are things that we want to know as consumers. Like, yeah, dermatologist tests us. 4 out of 5 dentists recommend Sensodyne for sensitive teeth. Where did you get the dentists? Were they all, Tylenol, the #1 most used brand in hospitals? That's because they give it to the hospitals for free. So that they can say that. And the hospitals will charge you for that Tylenol that they're getting for free. If you go through the bill on a hospital bill, which most people don't because hopefully you have insurance, and you sort of rely on the insurance company to say, that's like, I remember one of my friends went through the hospital and had a surgery, and after you've gone through surgery, if they stick a tube down your throat to intubate you so that you breathe while they've got you under, they give you something because you have a dry throat afterward that's called a cough support device. This sounds like it's medically necessary, a cough support device. Do you know what that is? It's a pillow that you can hug when you're coughing, right? So, I mean, like 4 out of 5 dentists. Were those the 4 out of 5 dentists that went to the Sensodyne convention? The 4 out of 5 dentists, was it a convenience poll? Was it a scientific poll? I mean, what's the difference between a convenience sample and a scientific sample? I could say 4 out of 5 students prefer my classes to my colleagues, if I poll people in this classroom and ask you about people that you've never taken, is that a legitimate? No, it's not, right? So we have like a lot of ability to influence people. Now, with regard to this ad particularly, I think there are things that are ethically problematic, but one of the things that we have to think about in ethics is it's not just black and white. It's not just it's unethical or ethical, right? But also the severity of the ethicality that we're talking about. So I think there's some things that are misleading in this ad when they say things like, this is a healthier alternative. Well, compared to what? Compared to Coke? Maybe, probably. You can clean battery cables with Coca-Cola. It's so acidic. If it will take the corrosion off of battery cables, think about what it's doing to your internal organs. Does that make this, I mean, sure, compared to Coke, this is probably way healthier. But is it? Is it a substitute for water? The only substitute for water is water. But people don't want to drink water. Why? Huh?
It's boring.
It's boring. If you don't drink anything else, you can actually start to taste the difference in water. I can, like, since I quit drinking, I used to drink like 15 Diet Cokes a day. And I gave that up about 5 years ago because I decided it was really unhealthy. And I drink mostly water. I drink a gallon of water every day. And I can tell the difference between water in Guthrie and water in Oklahoma City. I mean, literally, I can taste the difference. And I can certainly tell the difference between water if I go to Dallas, which is softer than the water. Like Guthrie is very hard water. You get to the point where you can tell the difference in water. So it's not as boring as it seems. But most people like it's kind of, it's supposed to be tasteless. It's not because of the processing. We can't just pull water out of the Cimarron. If you listen to my conversation when I walked in, I was talking to the mayor today, our new mayor in Guthrie, who doesn't understand a lot about where we get our water from and the lake issues, and he didn't run on that. And so he was asking me about, these people are posting online about the water issues in Guthrie, and I'm like, we don't really have a water issue in Guthrie. Yes, the lakes are down, but we pull water from other sources, and we have alternative sources of water should the lakes completely dry up. There are lots of communities in Oklahoma that don't have a lake. They're pulling off of an aquifer, groundwater, and so we have other sources of water. It's not really that big a deal. But is there an alternative to water? Is this healthier than water? Probably not. One of the things that I see a lot of my students using constantly is like chapstick, constantly using chapstick. I used to do the same thing when I drank 15 Diet Cokes a day. When you start drinking water, it's amazing how you need less chapstick. You need less lotion on your hands because you're actually hydrating. Now, that's not to say that when it gets to be 105 degrees here in Oklahoma and the wind is blowing that you probably don't need some lotion or chapstick. Those are times. But it's amazing, like when I quit drinking 15 Diet Cokes a day and started drinking a gallon of water, how much the difference in my skin, my lips, all of that helped. So this is, I think, somewhat ethically problematic because we're promoting something and we're saying this is healthier than, and one of the things when we do that we create is called a health halo. And so then people think that they have permission to do that. So one of the things that, for example, that they looked at was some research in marketing and branding that's had some criticism recently, and some of it has been withdrawn, is this kind of idea of a health halo effect, where if you say this is a healthy snack, like popcorn, and you say this only has, 15 calories for one of these little bags of Skinny Pop, right? You all have seen these little bags, these little cellophane bags of Skinny Pop. What people do is, rather than eating one bag of it, they start eating what? 5 bags of it because it's healthy. Well, is it really healthy? if you're consuming an enormous amount of pretty much empty carbs and sugar, I don't know. This is one of those things that has a health halo effect. Is it better than Coke? Probably. Is it better than Pepsi? Yeah. But is it a substitute for water? Probably not. What kind of theory do you think would support this advertisement? Which theory do you think would support it?
We put utilitarianism just because it doesn't replace water, but it is better for people who drink soda. Hopefully, if they replace that, it's better for them. Companies making money.
Okay.
People are
So if we're slightly better
Yeah.
than we were, recognizing that most people are not gonna be like me, they're not gonna give up drinking soda. Although it's amazing to me that your generation, a lot of you don't drink soda. When I travel with students, it's amazing to me how I'll say, you guys can order whatever you want because largely the competitions pay for it. So we get reimbursed for expenses from the competitions, and I'll be like, you guys can order whatever you want within reason. You know, I mean, you're not gonna get surf and turf at, you know, some fancy steak restaurant when we go out, but you can have what, and most of my students do drink water. Now they don't order pop. So is it better? Yeah, maybe. You know, is it better overall? Maybe. Can you make a duty ethics argument with regard to this ad that it's supported by duty ethics? Maybe. You have a duty to bring products that may be better to market, and people have a duty to inform themselves as to whether or not, and to make critical evaluations. Do they? Not usually. Some people are getting better at it.
I feel like our generation is definitely getting a lot better, mainly because of social media. So we're able to see just how bad things are that generations before really haven't looked into or cared about.
I think one of the things, so I had this employee, I own a bed and breakfast and a restaurant in the bed and breakfast. And one of the things that we do is if you're there and we're cooking, we feed whoever, like anybody who works for us, we feed. And if you're there that day. And so we had this young lady who worked for us who was a reservationist, and she was a vegan. And so I actually learned how to, which is really antithetical to me because I grew up on a cattle ranch. So I grew up believing that beef is what's for dinner. That was the big advertisement by the American Beef Council when I was a kid growing up. They would have these things on television, you know, and they'd show you these big thick steaks, beef, it's what's for dinner. And that's certainly what my father thought, was that beef, it's what's for dinner. So I learned to cook vegan dishes for her because I was sort of interested in doing it. And I actually got to the point where I could cook a lot of stuff and make it taste really very similar. Now, the difference is that 5 minutes after I ate it, I was starving to death. I can make vegan chili that tastes exactly like it's got beef in it because I know which meat products are actually the best in terms of the texture and sort of flavor profile of chili meat. And I got really good, but I'm like starving to death 5 minutes out. I'll eat a huge big bowl of vegan chili. 5 minutes later, I'm starving to death. The reason I say this is because there is a larger percentage of people that are becoming vegetarian and vegan. And if you're vegan, you really do have to look. I mean, those people really do. And there's a bigger movement among your generation of vegans than there are among people my generation. And you actually do have to look because you would be amazed at the number of things that you find animal byproducts in.
One
I
that
would-
surprised me is like gelatin sort of like products. So anything that's like
Oh,
gummy and stuff usually has animal byproducts.
yeah. I mean, there's just no way to make gelatin without aspic, right? It's a byproduct of meat rendering. And there's really almost no way to get that kind of texture without it. So yes, almost everything has an animal byproduct. Most people don't know that they use an animal protein to stabilize wine. So most wine is not vegan. Most commercially produced wine is not vegan. It's got I think it's a cattle protein in it to stabilize it, to make it shelf stable. So there's a lot. So you have a duty to become informed, which is, yeah, this may be better for you than Coke, but it's not the same as water. All right. This is the ad that you all chose, or is the ad before the ad? All right. So why did you guys choose this ad?
This is kind of like an emotional ad that uses like storytelling. It kind of like shows the backstory of like the athletes before like they became like great or like did whatever they did, and like shows kind of like what kind of hardships they went through to get there.
I feel like them showing them that makes it a little bit more relatable. Not everybody's an Olympic athlete, but we have bad weather going on outside. They showed a tornado. There was a car accident. There's someone was bullied. Like it's relatable. It's very emotion provoking.
To deliver a selling message?
I think it's more about like the brand image. It just shows like it's because this is like a product. They didn't like show any products itself. It was just more like showing like values that matches the brand.
Okay. And maybe that's worth something to some companies, right? If they have a huge presence, to have some idea. I mean, one of the things that is important among your generation, less so among my generation, is that you engage in ethically and socially responsible sort of ideas. And that has become enormously important for companies. Now, it's kind of interesting how fickle companies will become, in that they will abandon those ideas if there's enough financial pressure put on them to do that, even though perhaps they were promoting good values. And I can think of several instances where that has been the case recently with companies that have been pressured into abandoning diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives as a result of sort of backlash from public opinion on those kinds of programs. But seems like a socially responsible type of ad. It focuses in on not just the idea that these people have overcome adversity and become winners, right? They obviously, if you went through a bullying event and then you were able to become an Olympic athlete, you've succeeded, you've achieved a goal. But I think, I think overwhelmingly this ad does promote good feelings, And to the extent that the company wants to be associated with that, I guess it achieved its goal. Do you think anybody remembered the ad, that it's Procter and Gamble after the ad?
No, I didn't even know it was Procter and Gamble until the very end.
Until the very end. Yeah. So could they have like done a better job? I don't know. At the beginning of, what if they flipped it and they said Procter and Gamble supports, you know, I don't know, moms everywhere, and then played the ad? Would that have been more effective?
I think it's pretty effective how it is because you're watching the ad thinking it's about the Olympics or something like that. And then cuts to the end, oh wow, this is Procter and Gamble, I don't know, I think I like how they did it.
What about the length of this ad? It's really long.
I think it is a tad bit long.
For this day and age, it's really, really long, isn't it? How much attention span did the average consumer have? You think the average consumer is going to make it to the Procter and Gamble part before they zap,
That skip ad button comes up real
right?
fast.
Like,
Not now, but it does say 2016.
okay,
So, 9 years ago maybe, but now
That's a good
no.
point.
I think with COVID, everybody wanted to skip ads or didn't want have the time to sit there.
again, we used to not be able to really avoid them because if you wanted to watch your program, there wasn't a good way of time shifting until we got the VHS. And for most people, actually, that became pretty burdensome, and they didn't engage in a lot of time shifting the way that the content creators had sort of hypothesized then. But we've gotten remarkably better at it in the modern age now because you can fast forward really, really quickly. You're not having to record it. You can probably find all of your shows that you like on, streaming platforms. And if those are not free, you're basically paying to have the ads removed. So you're paying the content creator. Or if they are free, you get really good at streaming. Or as you've suggested, there is the skip ad icon on a lot of these. What theory do you think can use to support this ad? Is it they're promoting values and the appreciation of somebody helping you? So what theory is it that you think that you could use to support this ad as an ethical ad? This one's unusual, actually.
I would maybe say Kant, just because that it talks about morals and what is universally right.
Okay.
But I'm not 1,000% sure.
This ad this is an unusual ad in that I think there's a theory that is almost never used. And almost all advertising, if you're going to try and justify it, it's usually utilitarian in that you're increasing overall happiness by providing goods and services that people want. Now, what a lot of ethicists would argue is that we're not really providing goods and services that people want. We're creating irrational wants and needs. And by creating those irrational wants and needs, we are perpetuating a spiraling system that is actually encouraging people to go into debt, to constantly buy the newest, latest, and greatest thing that they don't really need. How much enjoyment do you get after you buy a product, generally speaking? When does the enjoyment start to diminish over the products that you purchase?
So when something new comes out.
It's radically, like the enjoyment radically diminishes almost instantly in every product. You buy a new car. I generally don't. I usually have panic attacks every time I buy a car. And I bought a lot of cars, and people are like, don't you just love it? It's got that new car smell. And I'm like literally sick to my stomach every single time I go and buy a new car. And by and large, on the whole, this is not a brag, this is a fact. I pay cash for my cars because I don't like being in debt. So I save enough money. And if you pay off your car, if you have you know, like I have a decent car that I can sell and have a sizable amount of money to go buy another car. And if I save the amount of money that I normally put towards a car payment over the 3 to 5 years that I own a car, I have the money to just go in and pay cash for the car. And I still feel like physically ill when I buy a car. But lots of people love cars. And I have to admit, I love cars. Like after I get them, usually I like them. But initially I'm like sick. But most people love their car, and that they love it for, you know, I mean, like when you first get your car, you think about this, you wash it all the time, you keep it really clean. And 3 months later, how much are you going through the car wash? How much are you vacuuming out the car? How much are you like the first door ding that you get? Usually, like that's sort of for me, that's the end of it. Like once I get that first ding, like the amount of times that I go to the car wash and do stuff with the car drops off drastically. Studies show that the most enjoyment we get is when we first purchase a product and we first use it, and after that, the amount of enjoyment diminishes incredibly over a very short period of time. And then it just sort of becomes, you know, like the first phone that you get, you're really excited about it, you play with it a lot, and then, you know, it diminishes over time. So what we really like, and what some people hypothesize, is that we're actually addicted to the buying. The same chemicals that make you happy when you eat something that tastes good, like ice cream or a cookie, happen in your brain. The same chemical reactions occur in your brain when you purchase something. And then they rapidly diminish. Just like when you finish eating the cookie, those chemicals and those good feelings go away, right? So I think that one of the things that you can justify this one on is virtue ethics, which is unusual because it actually is talking about values. What are the values that it's promoting? Appreciation of somebody else, a recognition that if you got somewhere, you probably didn't do it on your own, that it takes other people to make that happen. One of the things that I was very critical, we had a governor in Oklahoma who years ago, she said, you know, if you built a business, you did that. You did it on your own. And Barack Obama, who was president at the time, will tell you, you didn't do that on your own. You didn't build that business on your own, that you owe other people. She was absolutely 100% wrong in her outlook on, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps and did this on my own. No, you didn't. Nobody did. If you built a business and it's successful, it is the result of a lot of things. And it's probably the fact that you have some education, which in Oklahoma, until you know you're at least 16 years of age and you can drop out, is free and compulsory. Why is it that we have such creative people in this country? You got to go to school. You can't work in factories. Those teachers, like if you built something, if you built a company, it's because you have some knowledge in your head somewhere that wasn't just there innately. Somebody fostered that. Your parents, your community fostered that. So I think like this promotes really good values in that it says you relied on other people to get where you are, and you should appreciate them. What's another value that it promotes? It's a virtue. Perseverance. Obviously, these people have overcome, like it shows that they overcame bullying or they overcame a fear of something in order to get where they are, right? I think that this is a really unusual ad in that it is one that you can actually support using virtue ethics. A lot of ads, you really have to wonder whether or not there's any virtue there. Who chose that ad? So who chose this one? It was your group? Why did you choose all of them or just one of them that you?
Oh, it was just like that whole campaign.
The whole campaign. Okay, so I appreciate the fact that you actually came up with an entire campaign and you selected that. And the reason I like this is because this was years ago, this was one of my favorite ads to use as absolutely, I hated the ads.
Oh,
Like
really?
literally like absolutely hated these ads for a variety of reasons. And I'll tell you, but this is one of those things where we love to hate stuff, right? I mean, it's kind of like me in Starbucks. I am like passionate about my hatred of Starbucks. Like it is like the tool of the devil. The devil has many tools and Starbucks is one of them. And I'm like passionate about this. I was also passionate about these two guys. So what was it that you guys liked about this ad?
I think we like the fact that it's like a sustainable campaign. Like they
Okay.
ran for a very long time, these ads.
Okay.
It's relatable, they're funny.
They're funny.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that they are funny.
Mm-hmm.
You like the ads. I think this is really interesting that you like the ads. Do you know what the demographic of Sonic's customer is?
Probably like, I'm guessing like a soccer mom.
Okay, that's exactly correct. You are absolutely right. It's a soccer mom
Mm-hmm.
who goes usually like 2 and 3 times a day for like the happy hour
Mm-hmm.
drink specials. They run through Sonic. They like the ice. They like the big, it's absolutely the soccer mom.
Mm-hmm.
Who else is the other demographic that goes to Sonic? Teenagers. It's soccer moms and teenagers. Their demographic is soccer moms and teenagers. Are those two guys at all relatable to soccer moms? Like to soccer moms and teenagers?
I guess not. But it's like the soccer moms like husbands. Like that's kind of the vibe. I feel like.
I think that like literally, I can't imagine who would marry those two.
Playing with a chicken sandwich like a
Right?
roller coaster.
I mean, like, I am like so. They're like. I know they're like
They're so bad.
they're the poster children for natural deselection. I mean, like I can't even fathom who would want to be in this. Like they are just so kind of morally repulsive.
It's not like funny.
Literally. I was highly critical of this whole ad campaign, and the minute Cliff Hudson loved the guys. He was the CEO, and he's like, it's the guys, it's the two guys that make, and it's like, that's not why anybody's going to Sonic. That's not why they go to Sonic.
Nobody knows them.
Yeah,
They're just the Sonic
I don't
guys.
know. I think it's interesting that you like them because I can't imagine that you in any way, shape, or form identify with them.
Maybe it's like a nostalgia thing. Like
It's like
growing up with it.
Okay.
That might be part of it.
I think it's
But-
also like intentionally obnoxious, just so you remember it.
They are, yes, I will say that. It is one of those things that so grates on my nerves that I do remember, and for years I played these ads and would be like just horribly critical of the ads. I guess they may have actually done better at it than I thought. However, interestingly enough, like when Cliff Hudson left, they stopped with these two guys. They decided that they were not at all what Sonic. Now I'm not sure what Sonic does now. I haven't seen a Sonic ad in a long time. Sonic is no longer an Oklahoma corporation. Their headquarters used to be. They started as an Oklahoma corporation. Their headquarters were down in Bricktown on the canal. They built a big, beautiful building, which is now largely vacant. I don't think there's anything in that building, and I don't think they're headquartered in Oklahoma anymore at all. So it's been a big transformation. But they got rid of the minute Cliff was gone. They got rid of these two guys on the commercial, which I thought was at least spoke somewhat to my evaluation of whether or not they're effective, but I'm not sure that Sonic is advertising a whole lot.
I see a lot for the smash burgers. that are
Okay.
new.
I guess I haven't seen those.
I think they just focus a lot on food. It's not like I get what they mean, but like you think of Sonic and you think of these ads, but like right now thinking about it, we can't think of a single Sonic
Ad, but you can't think of these.
I
Yeah,
can't, yeah.
I was gonna say,
Right.
those are pretty.
I guess, and maybe I was wrong in my evaluation because maybe it does, I mean, they do show the product throughout the ad. They are talking about Sonic products. And it's just that their reaction to the products are, in my mind, so morally reprehensible that I can't imagine eating them, but
But you
Okay.
recognize it.
that's true.
So-
Absolutely.
Did the ad do its job? Cause you hearing that, you would know it's like, oh, I hate that ad. but it's
Literally,
still Sonic.
when they ran these, I would not go to Sonic.
Oh,
Because I, just
It's
like
so
I
bad.
am morally offended by Starbucks, I was morally offended by Sonic. And now that they've gotten rid of them, I will go. I have to say that I think Sonic is highly overpriced. And it's incredibly, I don't know, not, like, none of their food is great. I mean, I don't mind paying for overpriced food, because it's all kind of overpriced anymore, as long as it's real, like McDonald's. I know a lot of people don't like McDonald's, but McDonald's does do some things really, really well. Now, they don't do them as well as they used to, but McDonald's French fries are still, I think, if you want French fries, I think McDonald's fries, as long as they're fresh, the minute they're not fresh, they're not wonderful anymore. But McDonald's French fries, as long as they're fresh, are, I think, like the best fast food French fries that you can get, in my opinion. They're just like addictive. Now, they used to be more addictive because they used beef tallow to fry their fries in, which made them taste a lot better, but they're still, in my opinion, really, really good. McDonald's breakfast are really pretty good. In fact, Starbucks has a product. They have basically a sausage McMuffin, which is exactly like McDonald's. I mean, it's the exact same product. It's sausage on an English muffin with American cheese. And one of my friends insists, he's like, let's go to Starbucks because it's just cleaner food. And I'm like, there's no way to make sausage clean. I'm like, first of all, I don't even know what that means. I mean, that's a marketing term. I'm gonna tell you this, like, clean food, that's a marketing term. Doesn't mean anything. We're attaching something to something that's enormously difficult to evaluate. What makes food clean? I'm gonna say that sausage is in no way, shape, or form, ever. If you mean by sort of produced in a healthy, non-processed way, if that's what you mean by clean, which is, I think, what a lot of people mean, is that it's like not overly processed, it's not, got a lot of additives and preservatives to it. That's never gonna be a piece of sausage, right? Well, you could have clean pork, you could have it naturally raised and slaughtered and not, taking the squeal out of the pig and running it through a grinder with lots of preservatives and things
Well,
to,
also, like, pigs eat everything.
Yeah, well, so do catfish, people eat that too. I mean, there's lots of things that
Yeah, you got me
eat
there.
everything. So, I don't know. But yeah, I used to love these commercials. I used to love to play these because they were just like commercials that those two guys, I was like, they're not in your demographic. Why do you think they're selling stuff for you? Because literally they make me want to run the other way and not go to Sonic. Okay. What's the ethical theory that you think supports this?
I mean, just like you said, probably utilitarian.
Yeah, if you're gonna use anything, it's probably utilitarianism. It's just, we're promoting a product that makes people happy. How do you measure that? How do you measure happiness? I think, we should question whether or not we're actually happy. Lots of research suggests that later in life, if you eat nothing but Sonic, you're probably not gonna be real happy. I mean, it will lead to a lot of health problems. But, in the moment, food makes us happy when we eat it. It's one of those things that the chemicals in the brain trigger when we eat something that we really like. And how do you make something that everybody likes? There are 3 things you can do to it.
Yes.
There are 3 things you can do to make something that just everybody will love it. If you can get all 3 in one, it's the trifecta.
One of them's frying.
That's fat. Add fat. What are the other 2?
Sugar.
Sugar, yeah, that's the second of the trifecta.
Sugar.
Salt.
Salt. Okay.
Add fat, sugar, and salt. Why are McDonald's fries with ketchup so good? Ketchup is full of salt and sugar, and the fries are deep fat frying. Right? Add fat to it. There was a cookbook that came out that became a big bestseller called Acid, Heat, Salt, Fat. Right? Have you all heard of this? And those are the key elements that go into most cooking to make it palatable. If you really want probably something that's healthy, my grandmother's diet was probably the best. And I would say, "What's your diet, Granny?" And she would say, "If it tastes good, spit it out." All right, so you guys over here came up with "Don't buy this jacket."
Yeah, we did a little
And-
different.
So you chose a print ad or a static ad rather than a video ad. Why did you choose the "Don't buy this jacket"?
So we chose this one just because it's kind of like it flips an advertisement on its head, where instead of it being like made to sell a product as efficiently as possible, the ad stands for like, hey, let's be honest and like let the consumer like really think about what this option is, like what they're doing. Because it's a Black Friday ad. So it's on sale. There's a limited amount, they're on sale. So that really gets into people's heads about buying it. But then you're like, well, don't buy it. It really gets into that like, well, do I need it? It kind of gives that like power back to the consumer.
Okay,
And so it allows them to like really think about it, and like it allows like companies, they're basically talking about like, instead of trying to grow as fast as possible by selling to as many people, you actually have like your market and you keep these long-term customers who are actually loyal because you're honest about your products with them.
okay. All right, so part of it is using, I think, reverse psychology, which may be ethically problematic. Don't like if you tell people don't, I mean, like, you all think about this when you were young, the fastest way to get you to do something, like my parents used reverse psychology all the time. The only thing that my parents ever said that we couldn't do was smoke. I mean, all 4 of my parents, I have 2 biological parents and 2 step parents because my mom and dad got a divorce. And all 4 of them they were all athletes. And they were all rabid anti-smokers. And the interesting thing about that is that generally speaking, people who are rabid anti-smokers are reformed smokers like myself. I was a smoker, and I am like, if I see somebody smoking or they like smoke, I mean, like, it makes me crazy. And I start in with the, if you quit now, you'll add 15 years to your life kind of thing. But my parents were all rabid anti-smokers. And so the only thing that they told my brother and I that we couldn't do was smoke. That was the only thing. I think if we grew up, my father was Roman Catholic, my mother was Jewish. So alcohol is part of most of the ceremonies in those 2 groups, right? The mass involves the bread and the wine. And unlike a lot of the Protestant denominations that use grape juice, the Catholics like their hooch. So they use wine and a lot of stuff. And certainly Jewish tradition is full of, kosher wine, which is just absolutely god awful, which may be the reason that we didn't want it. But if we had said we wanted to have some wine, one of these, even when we were little kids, at Seder or whatever, my parents were like, yeah, sure, go right ahead. You'd taste it. And if you ever tasted kosher wine, has anybody ever had kosher wine like Mocha David?
It's not good.
Manischewitz? It's like cough syrup. It's just not.
I just don't like wine in general.
So we really didn't really try a whole lot of that stuff because our parents were like, yeah, if you want to try that, go ahead. But if I had said I wanted to smoke a cigarette, which that's the one thing I rebelled against, was The minute I could, I tried smoking and I absolutely loved it. And it was really hard to quit. And I wish I'd listened to my parents, but now I'm a rabid anti-smoker. But my point is that the fastest way, and one of the things that my parents did was they just didn't tell us no. And so my brother and I just didn't do a lot of stuff because there was never anybody saying you can't do that. I mean, they were like, hey, you want to do that? Go right ahead. Go, knock yourself out. And so we didn't rebel. Some of this is like saying don't buy this, like instantly the normal human reaction to being told don't do something is what? Don't tell me what to do. You're not the boss of me, isn't it? Yeah, maybe. So, is it using some of that? If you recognize that that is a human trait, and this leads into when we talk about autonomy and allowing people to make autonomous choices, is two things, or there's a number of things that we have to have to make sure that people are making good choices. And I think I may have put this up before, but when we talk about ads, it's really important. One, that they're making a knowing choice, right? Two, that it's voluntary. And three, that it's intelligent. These are the three things that we have to have in order to not overbear the will. Now, the first two are pretty easy. Do you know you're purchasing the product? Well, maybe it's not as easy in the modern world, because when you purchase a product, do you really know what's in the product? Do you really know? But you could, in most instances, know, particularly with things like food, what's in the product. We don't want to know what's in the product in most food products. You really don't want to read the label, but you can. Is it voluntary? Well, that's a pretty easy bar. You're not putting a gun to somebody's head and saying, buy my product or your brains will be on the floor. But is it intelligent? This is the one. What's an intelligent choice? Well, ethicists suggest that autonomy is not something that you have one moment and not the next. And I don't think that's true. Let's look at this ad. Have I ever played the Peggy ads before in here? Okay, all right. I think these are highly ethically problematic. She didn't provide it, by the way. So I think this is a highly effective ad. because it engages the mind of the consumer. If you're facing cancer, or you know somebody who is, you're instantly alerted to this. It shows you pretty hospital rooms, advanced surgical suites, things like that. And it tells you, you know, like, look for, you know, hope. Peggy died. They had to stop running this ad. They've also rebranded themselves because they had such a bad reputation in terms of their statistics. They are now called City of Hope. But this is one where I think you can really bear the will. Is it an intelligent choice? I don't think it is. The ad makes you feel good, right? And you think it lures you into a sense of you're making an intelligent choice because they talk about we've got the latest technology. How do you evaluate that? Right? And I'm not sure that this is one where you're not overbearing the will. If somebody is diagnosed with cancer, they're not thinking clearly. And maybe their abilities to evaluate alternatives are severely compromised. And so we're targeting a vulnerable population. And when we talk about vulnerable populations, we really, really have to think about what we're doing in terms of the advertising that we engage in, which is why historically places like the Mayo Clinic, which is probably the best cancer treatment center in America, don't advertise. Because they recognize that this is an enormously difficult thing. Now, they have started, largely as a result, I think, in response to CTCA and the pressure. Well, I am out of time. That's the end of our class. I've enjoyed having you all this semester, and I look forward to reading your final exam essays, and I will get your article reviews graded just as quickly as I can. If you have questions, you're always welcome to text me as you prepare for finals, and just let me know. All right? Thank you.